It's very important to face the fact, but also be able to overcome the challenge that is before you by doing concrete steps towards those goals. And those concrete steps may be very difficult, very nuanced, but they are all worth it.
And I feel like a lot of these things on my mind, or the things that drive me to do this podcast, is kind of just fixing the world so that people like my parents could have a better chance. Meet Deborah Laajanen, who I found very fascinating. In fact, the way that I found her was through LinkedIn. I stumbled upon a LinkedIn post of somebody who had gotten into law school despite having been in Finland for only a few years and having to know Finnish to the extent that she can get into do law in one of the institutions here, or to study law in one of the institutions here, it was just really impressive. And so I absolutely had to reach out to her to do an interview. And luckily I messaged her, I explained what we were trying to do to help other people, and she was very much on board and very supportive of the whole idea. So yeah, we have this great conversation, and I can't wait for you to listen. So Deborah, right, it's lovely to finally put a face to the name. I was just going through LinkedIn looking for people who fit the description of what I want. So anyone who's learned Finnish to a really high level, so higher than almost C or C and above, and came to Finland as adults and also speaks English because the podcast is going to be in English. And also it's harder to learn Finnish when you have no language because it's so easy to default to it because Finns will speak English with you.
That's true.
Yeah. And yeah, I came across that you got into law school after having been here, 3-4 years?
4 years.
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, that's how I came across. And I was very impressed when I called you, and it was, your Finnish level was like incredible. I was a bit blown away because people like who've reached that level that you've been able to reach, or that we've been able to reach, are surprisingly hard to find who didn't grow up here. But yeah, I'm really glad that you decided to do this. And yeah, without further ado, let me just get into the questions that I have. Yes, just briefly, how does Finland show up in your life story? Like, what brought you here? How long have you been in Finland?
Yeah. So, firstly, I would like to say that it's my pleasure to be here and to be able to help other learners, beginners of the Finnish language. So I would really like to help them, to maybe to inspire them or to motivate them to study Finnish, because there's a lot of negativities as well in social media and all of those stuff. But yeah, to answer your question, I came to Finland 2021 because I have a Finnish husband. So we got married 2021, and we decided to live here instead of my home country, which is the Philippines. So yes, the Philippines. So I'm a Filipina. In the Philippines, I'm a licensed attorney, so I'm an attorney of law. But when I came to Finland, I was kind of expecting that it would be easy for me to somehow integrate. But then when I came to Finland, it was not like that. There's a lot of expectations when it comes to Finnish language and integration in terms of the Finnish language. And so I didn't start my integration or studying the language in my first year in 2021 because I had to get all of my certificates from my home country and get my certificates and take my oath as a lawyer. But I started my integration in 2022. So officially, I studied Finnish for 3 years on and off because in 2022 I also got pregnant. I had a very difficult pregnancy that is also a challenge in studying the language. But yeah, it went well. And on and off studies in 3 years. I took the intermediate level last year, so I passed it. And then because it's not enough, the University of Helsinki is requiring B2 level of Finnish proficiency. So I took the Valtion hallinnon kielitutkinto. So I took that this year, which means I am in the fifth level of CEF4 or B2 to C1 level of Finnish language proficiency. And then that's just one of the requirements for law school. So Master of Laws. And yeah, and I thankfully passed the admission to the University of Helsinki Law School, Master of Laws.
Wow.
And yeah, that's where you found me, I guess.
Yes. And this was, you made the
Mhm.
post about a week ago, I think. Yeah. This is
Yes.
fresh news that
Yes.
you just got into the program. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
It
you're
is.
starting in, I suppose, September or August. Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
Okay.
September.
And how does it feel having like finally gotten that out of the way?
Yeah, it really feels good. Honestly, it was like a burden off of my chest because well, the legal field is in itself
Yeah.
nuanced. So it means it's technical, just like for example, medicine, engineering. And when it comes to language, I also have to be able to understand the Finnish legal jargon. So that is also difficult. And in the Valtion hallinnon kielitutkinto, what is being tested is not necessarily day-to-day Finnish language
Mhm.
survival. What is being tested in that exam is your level of reasoning, your abstract level of reasoning. For example, if you are given a question in the exam of societal circumstances or governmental issues, you have to be able to express yourself in Finnish.
Wow.
So it's not, for example, a customer service call or something like that, just like in
Yeah.
Turkey, but it's something that which is very reasonable because in the university you have to be able to express yourself and reason and be logical and in Finnish. So not in English because Finnish is the medium of instruction
Right.
in master. So yes,
Wow. And what was the name? Valtio.
kielit.
Okay. Yeah. Because
Mm-mm.
I, up
Yes.
until I saw your post, and when we had a phone call, I didn't even know there was a different test one could do. But yeah,
Mm.
and I have to admit that sounds like a lot harder just based on the fact that, at least for me, because I have a very technical background. So when it comes to that
Mhm.
subject of governmental stuff or societal stuff, my ability to talk about it, even in English, because I've not gone into it much, it never makes sense to me. So I can imagine that would be such a difficult thing for me to do in Finnish. Yeah. So, bravo to you. Kudos to you on that. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
One of the goals of this podcast that I'm trying to do is to get people who have had different life circumstances so that
Mhm.
like when somebody's listening to this, maybe they'll be like, oh, he could do that because he was a single male or single female who had no responsibility, whatever. But I want to have people from diverse life situations and backgrounds to tell their lives, tell their
Mhm.
journeys, so that um, the kinds of things that work for you, person A might not work for person B, and the listeners can pick which elements of their learning journey that works for them. So could you, so in your situation, you said, so you are a married individual and your partner is
Mhm.
Finnish. And could you just maybe describe briefly, just life circumstance wise, in the last 3 or 4 years for you?
Yeah. So I am married to a Finn, so people might think that that would be easier for her
It's
because
not.
they may be speaking in Finnish with them, but yes, it's not because our let's say our love language is English, so we talk in English, and so it's kind of I think there's a study that if a person speaks a different language, it kind of gives a different impression. So that's what happens to us. So we don't necessarily use Finnish every day. So we mainly use
Right.
English. And I would also like to raise my son to be
Yeah.
bilingual. So my husband speaks to him in Finnish, and then I speak to him in English. Regarding the life circumstances and situation, it was difficult for me, I should say, because I told you I was like adjusting to the Finnish culture, adjusting to the weather. I'm adjusting to everything. And then also I have to somehow start from scratch in a sense when it comes to networking, when it comes to making
Yeah.
friends, and especially career wise,
Right.
because I have to be able to start again on top of a difficult pregnancy, on top of a lot of different adjustments that I have to
Yeah.
face. Because well, as a lawyer, it is totally reasonable that in a different jurisdiction your degree is not fully
Yeah.
recognized. Yeah, but that is also where I struggled, because back home I'm already a licensed attorney. So I finished my bachelor's degree 4 years, and then I finished 4 years of my Juris Doctor, and then on top of that I have to pass the bar exam,
Mm.
which I prepared for 1 year. So all of that seems to be not recognized, realistically
Yeah.
speaking, in Finland if you don't know
The language.
Finnish.
Yeah.
So yeah, the language. So that is one of the challenges that I have to face. Even if, for example, there are certain profession like international law or dealing with my immigration
Yeah.
technical laws, it's the opportunity is very little, especially if you don't have
Yeah.
advanced, or let's say in job ads it's usually advanced or fluent
Right.
Finnish, which is basically C1 C2. So those are my life situation. So I guess what we're heading to at this point is to give our listeners kind of maybe a motivation that it's difficult and there is unique circumstances to every
Yeah.
individual, but it is not impossible.
Right. Which is, yeah. Well, now my English is better becoming well summarized. Yeah. Well summarized.
Yes.
Yeah. My next question would have been, what prompted you to learn the Finnish language? Was there a turning point or a specific need? But I think you've already kind of mentioned about that just for the professional life, but being like the major reason, although just, yeah. But was there like a specific turning point where before which you were not so much like going to learn, but then after that you were like, I have to?
Yeah. So career wise, all of the job ads that I encountered enlisted
Yeah.
advanced or fluent Finnish. So I cannot even land a paralegal, a legal assistant job, administrative jobs without having a fluent Finnish language. So that is a turning point career wise.
Right.
But in terms of integration, because when I came to Finland, there's always a love and hate relationship in integration. So there's a high point, there's a low
Yeah.
point, there's a time when you hate everything, and there's also a time that, well, that is, as we all know, and we all go through that, and it's even research based that there's different types of adjustments and integration. So what I'm trying to say is, um, integration wise, it is my way of respecting the Finnish
Right.
culture, because I came here, I'm an immigrant, but because I respect the people, I appreciate the peace, the order, and the country and the
Yeah.
people. So that is my way of respecting them, because I have been saying to people that integration is a bilateral relationship where I have to also, as an immigrant, an incomer, a newcomer, this is my way of respecting and showing that I am
Yeah.
willing to learn, I'm willing to adopt, and I'm willing to embrace without losing.
It's a very good point. I've never heard it, but that it's a bilateral relationship. Yeah, because the country makes effort for you to integrate, and then you also have to in turn make some effort. I believe that's what you meant. Yeah,
Exactly.
right. This is a very good. Yeah, but okay. So basically, education wise, you said 4 years bachelor's, 4 years master's, and then prep for that bar exam. So that's a lot of years off. And I know in my family, my mom did her master's here, bachelor's and master's. My dad did bachelor's, master's, and was doing his PhD. And both of them struggled with getting jobs because their fields required them to know Finnish. And I feel like a lot of these things on my mind, the things that drive me to do this podcast is kind of just fixing the world so that people like my parents could have a better chance. And yeah, because there's this, and then there's another thing that I've been thinking of doing a podcast about, which is also something that I wish my parents knew back then. So I really relate
Precisely.
with that. Yeah. Okay. So now let's dive into the boring part, which is, so walk me a bit through your learning journey. Like what things worked and what didn't.
At the beginning of my Finnish language journey, I was put in a class where it's already the fast learners group. But at some point in that class, one of my classmates was like, which I got a perfect score in one of our quizzes, and it was already at the latter part of that class, because that is A1 to A2.2 level. And then she said that, why are you even here? You're already in the advanced level. So what I'm trying to say is that didn't somehow work for me, because I was put in a class where I could be categorized in another class, which could be a faster learners group.
So they put you with people who were not, say, picking it up as quickly as you were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in that class, but these people, I'm not in any way underestimating anyone, but that is the result of the exams and their own evaluation of how I am and how I speak and
Based on their
fast.
evaluation, that you should have been a bit faster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somewhere else. Yes. Yeah. So, but yeah, that I think there should be more categorization of learner. But then after that, I enrolled in a summer intensive Finnish class, and that is for professionals. So that is every night we have 2 to 3 hours class, and that is, I think, where I fit most, because my classmates are like also professionals, engineers and doctors and all that. So that is the time when I'm preparing for the UKI intermediate test. So I think that helped a lot, those classes that I enrolled in during that time. And what worked was that I learned the grammar.
At this moment, before we go into what worked.
Yes.
Before we go into what worked, let's say you've been in Finland for 4-ish years, so that's 48 months, I suppose. From which month or from which year did you join the integration program?
2022.
And that's about a year into being in Finland, right?
The second year.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when did you realize that this was that you should be moved to maybe a faster or a next level class?
I think 3 months in my 3 months in my first,
so basically,
integration.
Your zero to that level, from zero to that level was just like really fast for you. Like you just picked it up really fast. Is that what happened? Or
yeah, I think so, because that class is a beginner 0 to 8.2.
Okay.
Yeah. So and they were
and I'm guessing since you only started in like year 2, in the year 1, your brain had kind of passively been picking things up, maybe. Or what do you think was the advantage?
Yes, passively. I'm listening a lot to people and trying to process. Of course, you cannot really understand everything, and you cannot even grasp, especially if people speak in a very fast and in puhekieli.
Yeah.
So I really cannot, but I can pick up some words, and because it could also be attributed to my profile, because I'm a lawyer. I think logically a lot. I wanted to process information in my head. Okay, so this is how he said this sentence. So this is the subject, this is the verb, and this is how it's just like I'm processing it in my. Although I'm not yet learning the language at that time, because I have to go back to the Philippines, and during that, in my first year, to be able to get my license and take the lawyer. So.
Okay. So you had to go back to kind of finish the law aspect. Okay.
Yes.
And then so you go back, you start then you came back before you started the integration course. Okay. And then in that summer you do an intensive. So the summer of year 2, basically, when you do the intensive evening course thing.
No, I did an intensive
Yeah,
course in my after this 6 months
integration
or
program.
6 months ish
Yeah.
integration class. Yes, yes. And then I did a separate intensive course after that for the Uki
Okay.
test.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm,
All right. Okay. Yes. I just wanted to
mm-hmm,
understand the timeline so far. Yeah. Okay.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure.
And okay. Yeah. Then now you were going on about what worked. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Please go on.
Yes, sure. What worked is I listened a lot, and just like what I mentioned already, I listen to people talk. I listen to my husband talk with his friends. I listen to Salko Otiset.
It's a
So
very good
I
one.
I also use that. Yes, and because I have a baby, then or I'm kind of looking for programs for babies, for kids, and also look at
Ah,
those easy finish. I also watch
yeah.
movies or those stuff.
That's a great cheat
And
code. Baby stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I because I'm also musically
Right.
inclined, so I also listen to songs, I sing, and I learn songs, and those are like I think easier to. It's a lot easier to learn the language when you're enjoying it. So, for example, if the I love the song and I know its equivalent version in English and it's translated in Finnish, so I could sing it in Finnish because I understand
For
every
which
word
song?
because I know it in English. So there are gospel
Oh,
songs
right.
that
Yeah.
yeah. So that would be a help.
Yeah.
And after there is those reference books used in the in program. So Suomen Mestari.
Mm,
So there's Suomen Mestari, Yksi, Kaksi, Kolme,
yeah.
Neljä. So those are like the reference books that we use. Those are also
Right.
helpful. There are certain influencers and people who would like to say that there's a certain hard and fast rule in learning the language, but I'm not an expert at all. I'm not a
Yeah.
linguist. But in my experience personally, there's no hard and fast rule in learning the language because there are so many methods which doesn't necessarily work for me, which would perhaps work for you.
Exactly.
So yeah, so and also there's a lot of factors which you have to take in. For example, your native language, your second
Yeah.
language, your third
Yeah.
language, and all of that. And yeah, so that's what worked for me. And during the my preparation for Rookie Test Intermediate last year, so I already read for the most part. So I'm Suomen Mestari Yrkskakskoolme. So I have already finished somehow the grammar aspect, which is very important because there's a grammar aspect in
Mm,
the that could be attributed to the fact that just like what I told you, that this my brain works in such a way that I need to understand the reason or the why behind the
yeah.
sentence.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? So that's and if I understand that, then I am able to use it as
Right.
well.
I
And
in my I'm a
yeah.
software developer and I started trying to copy the good behaviors that I see from the senior devs that I've seen. And there's one particular guy.
Mhm.
If you say anything and it does not remotely even remotely does not make sense, he will question you until it is
Mhm.
concretely, clearly makes sense. And that's one habit that I'm trying to pick up just generally in my life. Yeah, shout
Mhm.
out to him. And so yeah, I completely and ever since I kind of started doing that, I've started noticing in some aspects of my life, I need things to be very explicitly said. Yeah, and if they're
Mhm.
not, it just
It's true.
yeah. But yeah, see that how that would help with language as well, with grammar especially.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm not yet done because in the VKT, in the Balteon, so that is just like what we discussed earlier, it's a lot harder because it's an abstract level of Finnish language profession. So to prepare for that, I did read lots of complex Finnish language. For
Oh,
example, not anymore Selko
yeah.
Uutiset, but other, for example, magazines and oh, well, in my case, in my profession, I read Finnish research, Finnish theses, um, and I listen to podcasts. I actually posted about this when I passed the VKT. So did, I listed some of the things that I did when I prepared for the
Yeah.
VKT. So I also listened a lot to podcasts or which are Finnish legal
Right.
podcasts. So they're talking about the Finnish legal realm or the Finnish jurisdiction and the Finnish legal issues. And I try to follow that. So
Right.
it's one thing to understand one person talking,
Yeah.
but it's another thing to be able to understand two people talking. And somehow, well, Finnish people do not speak on top of each other, interrupting each other. But still, it's a different context when it's
Right. And
or
the pace is a bit
yeah.
different as
So
well if
or
there's two people having a conversation.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I try to be able to understand it. And when my husband or when my in-laws are talking with each other, I try.
Okay. Um,
Yes.
podcasts were a huge part of my learning journey as well, like massive parts. I just basically took all of my interests in podcast related interests and just found finished versions of that. And just like in 2022, when I did the 1 year intensive thing, would you, off the top of your head, would you happen to remember some of the podcasts you listen to? Because I also am
Yeah.
interested in, especially Finnish criminal law, because fingers crossed, I've never had to deal with anything like that. And and I only know about law from American series, and I have no idea how criminal law works in Finland.
Yeah, so I listen to Käsittelyssä. So it's a Finnish podcast. It's a very good podcast because it interviews different lawyers or attorney at laws in
Mm.
Finland. So it's a very informative as well, and also it takes into account their experience as
Mm.
well. The interviewers' experience in the legal field and their specializations, and also Juristifodi. So I also listen to that. And what off of the top of my head, and there are also in YouTube,
Mm.
there are also Finnish teachers, but this is much more when I'm preparing for the Uki test. So there are those, and there are certain channels in YouTube as well that I follow.
Okay.
And also, there's also one more. It's not a podcast. It's also in YouTube, but it's Lotta. So she's trying to say that it's a lot easier to learn Finnish when you are observing, when you are absorbing it. So that's just her way learning the language. So those are off of the top of my
Right.
head.
Right.
Some
Lovely. Lovely. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So actually, the next question is, what resources did you use, and were there any? Ah, yes, this one. Were there any that surprised with you with how useful or useless they were?
The Suomen Mestari that I use for the Uki tests, or they are very useful for me. I know that some people do not really like grammar and somehow, of course, but I think of it as a foundation. So even if I'm not yet fluent in the Finnish language, I think that reading about grammar is helpful for me personally. So I wouldn't say that that is not profitable or beneficial. What is not beneficial? Okay, at least in the classes, in my Finnish language classes, the classmates and the teachers, I think what is not useful at all is too much activities and too much like activities where you talk with another classmate. Or what I'm trying to say is, if you're talking with a person who is below your
Yeah.
level or with the same level, there's a little margin for you to learn more. But if you talk, for example, with a native
Mm.
Finn or a person whose level is higher
Yeah.
than yours, the chances are you will learn more. But in the classes where I was before, there are lots of exercises that we are tasked to, okay, talk about this topic with your
Yeah.
classmate. I know that that at a certain level, of course, it is
Right.
beneficial, and for certain people,
Yeah.
perhaps it is
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
beneficial. But yeah, but for me, I don't think it is that much of a benefit for me.
Okay. This is a very unique, like a hot take. I need to keep this in mind. Yeah. And okay. So Suomen Mestari and was a very good resource, and podcasts you mentioned earlier. And what else did you mention?
Videos, YouTube
videos. Yeah.
videos.
On
as
social
well.
media,
Mhm.
did you follow people on social media that help with this?
No,
Okay.
not really. I wasn't really following, and I couldn't really find
Okay.
Any,
Okay.
except for this YouTube channel, which is Gemara, who is a Finnish
Gimara.
teacher. I think that's
Gimara. Okay.
Gemara. Yeah,
All right.
Gemara. I think that's quite
Okay. I will
useful.
check out this Gimara. So apart from the speaking exercises being kind of useless for you or not very beneficial, are there any other thing that
Yeah. Maybe during my one of my integration classes, we were asked to watch
uh-huh.
a movie,
Uh-huh.
Finnish movie, but that time I think it's quite useless because we are what is our level? Our level is like A2 or
Whoa.
something. But of course, when you watch a movie and the movie is not like Ules selko-uutiset, then it will be difficult, especially if there's no text set. So if there's no
Subtitles.
captions, subtitles. Yeah, I don't
Also,
think that's also
okay.
beneficial.
Okay. But you feel like if you had been more advanced, then it would have made sense. Okay.
Yes, that's true. It's very important to be able to give exercises which are in line with your level of proficiency.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
What observations have you made about people learning Finnish?
Yeah, at least in in Finland, there are immigrants who were able to learn the language fast. For example, when they, just like what you did, they totally immerse themselves to the Finnish culture, the Finnish language, without shifting to their native language or without shifting to English. So I was in the lab University of Applied Sciences. Um, it's a 6 month, 30 credit program for immigrants. So I did that program before I took the Valtion Hallinnon Kielitutkin. I enrolled in that, but you have to be at least B1 in order to enroll in that program. So I enrolled, I applied, 22 students were chosen, and 20 plus students were chosen, and we studied. And in that course, there were several exercises which are very beneficial because we are asked to report on a thesis. On our field, we are asked to report on a nuanced topic on our field in Finnish. We are asked to summarize legal texts or texts in line with our profession. And well, because this is already an advanced class in Finnish, but I think that it's beneficial. And my classmates during that time, they don't speak in English. Most of them are Russians, most of them are Ukrainians. But
Oh.
I was quite surprised that their level of Finnish is almost the same as mine. So what I'm trying to say is that they were able to get to that level because they do not have the option to
To
shift
English.
in English.
This is
Yeah.
100% this. I always tell people this is yeah. Because I in the previous podcast when I just explained how I did it, it was like I observed that those who are learning the language and learning it fast, what advantages or disadvantages do they have? And it's like, okay, well, they don't speak English, so they can't switch to English. Okay. Next step is how do I simulate that for myself? And so, and that required a lot of like willpower and discipline. There were days where I was just a little too tired, but yeah. So I just doing simulating that environment for myself was really that was the entire goal of 2022 for me. And I remember even because I was dating somebody who was native Finnish and or spoke Finnish at a native level. And I remember telling her that, hey, we're only going to speak Finnish. And that was a huge deal because you're in a relationship. So it's a bit different. And it's having arguments. And then it's like, wait, hold on, let me think about what I need to say. And yeah, and God bless her heart. She what is it called? She had the patience for this. So, yeah, and yeah, that was not. I can imagine that was not a little fun. But yeah, 100% that. Just force yourself. Don't switch to English, and then maybe you have a few. If it's like a diet, you have a few cheat days here and there. But yeah,
that's true. Yeah, that's very effective. It takes a lot of mental power, mental effort, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, are there any surprising or unconventional things that you did that most people might not necessarily think of?
Unconventional ways. I don't think if it's unconventional at all, but what I do, for example, if I listen, for example, to a certain podcast and I don't understand the
Well,
phrase or an idiomatic expression they say, and then I make a mental note or actually take out an actual notebook, a small notebook, and then I write it down, that phrase, and then I search it later on when I get home, or I make sure that I know what it means, or I ask Chat GPT. So I ask AI about its significance, its meaning, and all of that. And during my preparation for the VKT, that is also a lot of help because I don't have, a teacher that I can ask what does this term
right.
mean? Because there are certain words which you use in your daily life, which has a completely different meaning in the legal
Yeah.
jargon, which I have to
Yeah.
know. So even if you are just in a level of you're trying to reason and you're trying to express yourself on governmental and societal issues, or that's very important that I know that certain phrase and that certain word, and then I write it down, and then I make sure that I absorb.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a. I'm a bit jealous because I think ChatGPT came out a bit like I think literally the year after I finished that 1 year.
Oh.
And the same thing you did with taking the mental notes. Well, in my case, was usually from books, and then I would like maybe underline it, and then I'll come back to it, and then put it in Excel, find example sentences for
Yeah.
it, Quizlet, memorize a couple times, and took so much time and effort, so much time, and yeah,
It
and then
does.
that
That's
literally the next year, ChatGPT comes out, and then when I started using it, like, oh my goodness, what a cheat code this would have been for that. Yeah. Because it's literally like and then when I realized that you can actually use ChatGPT in Finnish, I was like, what? That was crazy.
yes. It was really a reason that just like
Yeah. But on the unconventional things, I think one thing that you mentioned that I think is quite unconventional is the fact that because you had a baby, and then
Mhm.
by extension, the content the baby consumes is easy stuff. So that I think also definitely
Yeah.
helped. Yeah. But that's something I would definitely
Mhm.
make a mental note whenever I'm talking to people about this. Like, yeah. And then, so we said that this requires a lot of like mental strength or willpower to kind of force things like that. But one thing I've noticed is that because you can't always have mental strength, it's kind of like you go to the gym, you can't carry the weight all the time, you know? So the,
Mhm.
like something useful that helps generally with goals anyways, is to have things that are passively set up so that you don't have to necessarily actively do things. In your case, what are the passive things that you did, like things that have already been set up or they happened to be in a way that just helped you along with your goal?
Yeah, I think I could mention the course that I enrolled to. So it's the course, 30 credit course, and it's offered in University of
Mhm.
Applied Sciences. It's for immigrants, and it's of course it's already set up in such a way that the student at the end of the 6 month course will be able to reach B2.
Mm.
So I think it's a very effective course, and it's really worth it to enroll in that course, especially if you're a highly educated immigrant and you wanted to be able to dig deeper to your own
Mm.
profession and to the Finnish language aspect of your profession. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So basically, the fact that you enroll, just all you have to do is just show up to it. So in that regard, it's kind of
Yes, sure.
passive. Okay. Okay. What about things like, I don't
Mhm.
know, set up your phone so that it's in one language, or you have, you make sure that the hobbies that you enrolled in are majority Finnish people or things like that? Is there any other thing that was passively, or one guy I interviewed actually, he said he had issues Loma. So for him, it was just
Mhm.
like things that just happened to be in a certain way. So you just took advantage of it to help you with your goal.
Just a little difficult for me to answer because I actually actively, so for example, the language in the phone or the settings in your phone that it has to be in Finnish. I think to my mind, it's an active way of learning
Ah, okay.
because if you set it up in
Yeah.
Finnish. So I cannot really think at the moment of something that is passive except for the course
Okay.
that I mentioned to
Okay.
you. And this could be somehow when you surround yourself with people who speak in
Yeah.
Finnish. So I have also those people around me, like old people and the family and like the community that I am also in. And also asking people, this could also be somehow active learning, but just asking people to not to shift to English when they see you or when they are speaking among
Yeah.
themselves, to
It's
let
good.
them speak. Because Finns are very considerate. They're going to shift in
Very much so.
English for
Yeah.
you when they see that you're struggling. So just give them a heads up that, okay, go ahead, speak in Finnish and do not mind. Oh,
Right.
yes, because I'm learning.
But but
Yes.
so I think that's actually a very good example of what I mean by the passive thing, because the things you just have to have the
Mm-hmm.
conversation with the person once or twice, and then after
Mm-hmm.
that, it
Yes.
just naturally works in that way. Or
Mm-hmm.
then with the phone, you set it up once, and then after that, it just naturally reinforces. You don't have to every day go turn the phone to Finnish, or every day go turn the person to switch to
Mm-hmm.
Finnish. So that's like kind of what I mean by yeah. And yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
also with surrounding yourself with people that who don't learn English or can't speak English. That's also a very good one that you yeah. And then the flip side of the question, which is what are the active things that you did or that maybe you've not
Mm-hmm.
had the opportunity to say mention or so far? Like do you have a study
Mm-hmm.
routine, speaking habit, etc. Things that you're like force it to
Okay.
be that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So during my preparation to the
Yeah.
UKI test, I have the integration course, and right after that, I enrolled to the course. But while also doing the intensive course, I said to my husband that even though it's really hard for him to follow because I told you our love language is English, he tries to speak Finnish at home
Mm,
and with other people and with the family. So that is actively, that is during the time when I'm preparing for Ukitas, but more so in my preparation for the VKT, I try to just immerse myself, just like what you did, immerse yourself to the language without an option for other,
mm,
except for understanding. Of course, when you're trying to understand, for example, a term or a phrase, you have to translate it and you
yeah.
have to, of course, use your native
Yeah.
language, whatever language it is. What else did I do? Yes, and in watching movies in whatever original language it is, there should be a Finnish
Subtitles. Yeah. That's
subtitles.
a very good one.
So yes,
Yeah.
I do that too. Yes, and whenever I go for a walk, whenever I go to gym, I listen. What is in my what default do I listen to is Finnish.
Okay. Podcast.
So yeah, so it podcast
Right.
and
Yeah.
music. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I
Yeah.
did off the top of my
Yeah.
head. Yeah,
I remember now that you mentioned that, I remember specifically because there's just some days I just did not feel like I just did not feel like it. But then
true.
you just yeah. Because I remember I was interested in like investing and then like real estate and stuff like that. And then there's I think Ostan Asuntoja podcast. And sometimes I just do not feel like it. I just want to have a nice time and then I have to switch on and do it anyways. And yeah. What conscious changes did you make in your lives that made it easier to practice than to not practice?
Okay, so I think because I went through a lot as a person, I went through a lot back in my home country to be like a
Okay.
lawyer. I went through lots of things, lots of sufferings, and it takes lots of
Right.
discipline. So I integrated the same in my Finnish language learning. Discipline is hard, resilience is hard. But when it comes to mindset, I have been, well, in my life, in my childhood until my adult life, I have lots of circumstances in my life where I have to have a mindset of survival and I have to have a mindset of discipline. And it's not hard, but what you think is what you are. So before being a lawyer, I set goals and I make sure that I use them. And I think that's very important as well in learning a
Right.
language. Because of course, just like what you said, there are days where it will be very difficult. There are days where you will meet people who will just you speak Finnish and then they will just correct you
Yeah.
automatically. Sometimes it's impolite, sometimes it's maybe out of care if you would interpret that way. So there will be discouragements and there will be people who will not accommodate to
Yeah.
you. But if you like let those outward factors affect your inner motivation, the problem or the challenge will be
Yeah.
insurmountable.
Yeah.
So that is what I've set in my mind that if I'm in Finland, I am with my family, my son or my future children are going to live here, then I have to be able to integrate in Finland and be able to learn and advance in the language as
Mm.
well. So that is my mindset that
Right.
I
So
did.
basically, the kind of conscious things that helped you to practice instead of not practice was just that the having the constant kind of reminder for yourself of
Yes.
that you can and that
Mhm.
okay that you've done difficult things before, so you can do this again. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah. I
Yes.
kind of relate on that subject. And the thing you mentioned about sometimes some people correct you and it's not fun or like or some people are discouraging. Yeah. I remember because in my case I was like 2022 is the year. So on the 31st December or 1st January of I just put it on all my social media. That if you know, because I don't want to have the conversation with every single person. But hey, speak Finnish with me, speak Finnish. So I just put it there. If you know me and you speak Finnish, we're only speaking Finnish. And there was one guy, and you know how the human brain has this thing where it just remembers negative emotions a little more than it should, even though you'd like to keep it. Yeah. There was one specific guy, no names mentioned, who was like, oh, why are you telling everybody this? And you're just seeking attention. I'm like, and it just really enraged me. But at the same time, too, I have to do what's best for me. Yeah. And then,
That's
yeah.
true.
So I really, really I relate on that part of that. Yeah. I've realized that integration is a huge factor because a lot of people from countries from wherever they're coming from, they come here and then they spend a lot of their time with people from the same country. And like I've noticed that a lot where
That's
even
true.
with, and that's one of the reasons why I started doing this. Because I'm from Ghana and I've met a lot of Ghanaians and then they asked me what tips I have for living here. And then my first thing is a language thing. But I've noticed that it's very hard for them to implement it because they spend their time with people from the same country a lot of the time. And yes, the brain wants comfort. Water flows where it's easiest, kind of. And the brain wants comfort, so it just will gravitate towards those kind of things. But how have you integrated yourself into Finland? And do you have any groups in your life who it's easy to kind of force to speak Finnish with you? First, you mentioned somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, we have. I don't have a language partner necessarily, where that person is like the one who is like accountability partner who pushes you to speak in Finnish. But I am put in certain circumstances where I have to, because I have set my goals. For example, that I am going to pass the rookie intermediate test in my second year of learning the language, and I'm going to
That's
pass the
crazy.
VKT in my third year.
That's actually
In my third year.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I've set it for myself, and so I did whatever it takes in order to realize the goals. And I haven't mentioned this is also very important. You know, in any other language, whether it's English, whether it's your native English language, you have to be able to read a lot in order to speak a lot and use the language. So that is the case with my English because my English is my second language, and I finished my law school, my my thesis, thesis in English as well. But in order for me to do that, I have to be able to read a lot in
Right.
English. And I think that that is also very important in Finnish, especially if the person is aiming for higher level of Finnish, and if the person is a highly educated immigrant who wants to integrate in his profession and wanted to be able to understand the jargons of his
Yeah.
profession. So that is what I did. I also read a lot, nuanced text, essays, research. books and even for fun. So if there's a novel, for example, or if there's a book that you wanted, there's a version in
Yeah.
English. Read it. So those are like the goals that I have set for myself. And I don't have this just like with this this bubble in international bubble where like we have a Filipino community in
Yeah.
Latvia and I speak to them in Tagalog or in Philippine because they speak to me also in
Tagalog.
Tagalog. And
Yes.
I think
So yes, I didn't want to
Tagalog is
embarrass myself. I was
yes.
going to ask what your native language is, and I know I've seen it written.
Yeah.
I've seen it written, but I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Tagalog. Okay.
That's all
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So they speak to me in Tagalog and I respond in Tagalog because I think it's polite. So although in learning circumstances such as in class, of course you speak in Finnish, and those people I don't necessarily force them to speak to me in Finnish, but in learning context, it has to be in Finnish. So in my classes or when I wanted to report or with my in-laws who are Finns. So those are like the places and the circumstances where I kind of immerse myself to the Finnish
Right.
language.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think you've also mentioned like all the courses, and then also, yeah, just
Mhm.
basically your baby is also actually finished. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
integration right there. And yeah,
Yes.
from your experience, when people don't succeed at learning Finnish, or they kind of maybe, yeah, don't succeed at learning Finnish, what has usually been the reason, just from your outside perspective?
Yeah, I think you know this already. You see lots of posts and reels in social media of how hard Finnish is and how difficult it is for or even impossible it is for people to
Mm.
learn it. I think it all boils down to the person's inner motivation and also inspiration and also the why of learning Finnish. Just like the why in your profession. Why are you doing your professional that because there will be along the way in learning the Finnish language, there will be discouragements and there will be this statistically only 2% of immigrants um reach the
Level
advanced
of course,
level of Finnish,
only two
only
percent.
2%. And yes, and of course, we have to be able to be, for me, to my mind, there are certain life situations where, of course, it is impossible. Like, for example, if you're a family man, if you're a family person, your work is 8 to 5 and all of that, and you just couldn't
Yeah.
squeeze it, then at that point, it could be impossible for you. But to say that it is totally impossible, I don't think that should be the mind. Very important to have a mindset that you can learn the language just as you're able to learn other things in your
Right.
life, your hobbies, your and all of that.
You mentioned the thing about the why, and then the basically the kind of the last person I interviewed, which is the episode I'm going to read. It's not yet released, but it's probably going to be released today or tomorrow. Was the why was included that she literally lost custody of her kids because she did not understand fully what she was signing, and and
Yeah.
yeah, and then this concept that you talk about, just of the self-talk, the inner self-talk, where if you're thinking that the thing is impossible, then obviously you're not going to be able to do it. It's just,
Mhm.
yeah, that kind of mindset about it. And she said the exact same thing, that she uses that you're self-prejudiced in that you're going to fail,
Mhm.
basically, at doing the
Yeah.
things. And another thing I've noticed is that I think humans, when we grow up and we're not forced to go to school anymore, we struggle to gather the courage or the force ourselves to go and learn new things. I've started to
That's true.
notice something like that. And yeah, but it
Mhm.
was a very good explanation of, yeah. And
Mhm.
then another one is, so what did you do that others did not do?
I I dwelt in the nuance. So with that I meant what I mean is there's a certain level of Finnish where you're able, for example, to survive in the streets or in the store, or you go to the mall, or you go to the shop, or you talk to a government employee, or there are certain situations where there's a certain level of Finnish where you can survive all of that. So if there's one thing that I think, it's not only me, of course, but I think there are not so many people who does the same, where you try to learn the Finnish language in such a way that you are able to participate in a societal or in a governmental or in an academic level. So I think that is very important. What you just mentioned about the woman who lost custody, being a mother, that sounds very
Right.
devastating.
Yeah.
And of course, as a lawyer, that is the repercussions of not being able to practice law. And I know that my passion lies in law, and that is, I think it's
Right.
unimaginable for
Right.
me. So that's what I did. I theoretically speaking, it sounds like cliche, but it's very important to have the mindset and put away the negativities. It's very important for me. I'm always very a factual, logical person. You face the fact. Finnish language is difficult. It is a
Mm.
language. But once you have faced once you face that fact, you and that's a challenge. You don't stop with just knowing the fact. You do things in such a way that you're able to hurdle those
Yeah.
facts, the challenge. So that is what I did. So there are so many sentiments over social media that Finnish language is very difficult and it's even impossible. Of course, very you have to be emphatic. You have to emphasize with people when they say that it's impossible for them. But to a certain level, to my mind, I think it's not true. It's not insurmountable, and it's very important to face the fact, but also be able to overcome the challenge that is before you by doing concrete steps towards those goals. And those concrete steps may be very difficult, very nuanced, but they are all worth
But
it. Yeah.
the thing you're
Okay.
talking about, that people think of it as being insurmountable or impossible. Just what is it called? It's I like to think about this like, if this journey takes, it's all a journey and it takes X amount of steps. So if it's 10,000 steps as opposed to 5,000 for Spanish or 2,000
Mm-hmm.
for, I don't know,
That's true.
Italian or whatever, then one foot in front of the other and then you will get there. It sucks,
Mm-hmm.
but one foot in
That's
front of the
true.
other and then you will get to the thing, and just have to keep a mood that allows you to keep going regardless of, that I forgot to mention when you said that only about 2% are able to reach advanced level of the language, of Finnish language. I did not
Mhm.
realize this. I did not know this was a thing until I started looking for people to interview for this podcast. And I
Mhm.
I'm an extrovert. I have a quite good network of people in Finland. And it is incredibly hard to find people who came to Finland after the age of 15 and have been able to learn Finnish to a high level, and especially people who spoke English when they came to Finland. It is incredibly
Mhm.
hard to find such people. And yeah, so the 2% statistic that he says makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of
Then
sense. Yeah. And yeah, right. But sorry, now we've talked a lot of what is it called? I don't know, technical things. And I want to kind of humanize the person who is behind who I'm interviewing. There's a random question I came across on the internet. What is a food that reminds you the most about your childhood?
the first thing honestly that came to my mind is rice, but
Rice?
because I'm an Asian, but that could be hilarious. But well, now I'm going to answer seriously. The food that it's a dessert food, but it's also made out of
Okay.
rice. So it's because it's what my father brings to me from work. So it's
So,
so it's a sweet rice. It's a rice that is made to be a dessert. So that's what reminds me of my childhood. Nothing like that in
rice,
Finland. But of course there is in my home
right.
country.
A sweet rice. And then the
It's
follow up to that
fine.
is actually, so,
Sweet rice.
yeah, sweet rice. Does it have a specific name in Philippines?
Yes,
Yeah,
In Tagalog, it's called
Biko.
Biko.
Okay, Biko.
Biko. Yeah, it's
And
called.
what is the like story around it, like in your childhood?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
story around it. Yeah. Um, just like what I mentioned earlier, I didn't live a convenient life. I didn't have an easy childhood. So I was raised in poverty. I have five older brothers, and I'm the youngest. So we are six in the family, and you could imagine we're living in the Philippines, and we are four. And every time that my father gets his salary or something like that, he comes home and he brings that to me, and I know that it's his favorite
wow,
food, but he doesn't touch it until, or even if it's until it's gone already, until we are able to have it, or I, because I'm the
wow,
yeah, youngest daughter. Yeah, so it's a very, what I'm trying to say is, it reminds me of my childhood, the difficulties of my childhood, and also my motivation to press forward and to remember the sacrifices of my parents and the survival mode that I had when I was back in my home country, and being able to reach my dream profession in my
yeah,
country, which I am also aiming for in
right.
Finland.
And considering your
Mhm,
background, I don't know how things work in Philippines, but I could, considering the background, I can also
mhm.
imagine how difficult it was to just to get in the school and then to finance that and all of that thing. So like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
true.
quite a remarkable, yeah, definitely resilient. It's funny because the word resilience came up also in the last episode that I did. And
Mhm,
I
mhm.
said, it's a word that people kind of, wow, resilience is so cool. It's a great thing. But in the moment when you're being resilient, it sucks.
Mm, it
It's,
does.
yeah,
It does.
yeah. But,
Mhm,
all right. And okay, so this now, let's get back to the kind of the more technical part again. And just now
mhm,
a bit of a rapid fire thing. And so from my kind of analysis of doing this, there was like 6 parts of learning a language. And I just want to quickly go through and then you just tell what are the methods that you use to achieve or to improve those parts of the language. Right. So with let's start with vocabulary.
listen and read a lot.
As an already do that.
Listen and read a lot with vocabulary, and take note of the words and phrases which are not
Okay.
familiar.
And then when you do take notes, how do you get them to become a part of you?
If there's any time for it, recite them and use them in actual
Okay.
sentences and in actual context. So because we learn languages effectively when they are put in context. So in vocabularies, especially if the context is a store, a context is customer service, if the context is school, or you have to be able to contextualize the words and the vocabulary, and in that way you'll be able to absorb
Oh,
them and use
yeah.
them
Yeah.
better.
Okay. And for the memorizing, did you use Quizlet or I personally use Quizlet? I just want to know what did you use for memorizing?
Memorize.
Yeah.
I'm not really memorizing. I don't know why. Part of it is because in law school, there are certain laws you have to
Yeah.
memorize. But in order for you to be able to be a good lawyer, you have to know the law by heart. You have to know the logic of it. And that's what I do as well. If there's a word, if there's
Yeah.
a phrase, I learn it by and what it means and the reason and the context whereby I'll be able to
Okay.
use it.
Okay. And then for the speaking, what things, how did you improve the speaking?
Just speak. This sounds like a cliche. It sounds like a
It's,
cliche, but you really just really have to speak. In different contexts, just like what I said earlier, you have to be able to speak. But in certain circumstances where you have an option to shift, then don't shift in your native
mm,
language. And in nuanced themes or topics, practice.
okay.
Practice your speaking before a mirror or before someone else who
Yeah.
knows the topic
Yeah.
as well.
Okay. And then with listening,
Listening is listen a lot. So you have to be able to, just like what I mentioned earlier, you immerse yourself with the language so you, of course, you can listen to your native language, the songs and podcasts in your native language. But if you are in the process of learning a second language, then immerse yourself with just
right.
that.
Yeah. And then the grammar.
grammar is read a lot and make mind maps. I do this a
Mind
lot
maps.
when I was in law school. So I take note of, like, for example, when I was studying
Uh-huh.
Party, so there's monical, lexical, Party. Then I make a mind map, or how does it work? What's the structure of this? So there are different types of sentence structures, types of sentences. Then I write it down. What's the structure? What does it look like? And I like writing. I learn also effectively when I
Mm.
write. So I do that too when it comes to grammar. And also read a lot because when you read a lot, you see how the sentence is
Yeah.
constructed. And then in your mind, you process the
Right.
subject, the verb, the object, and the
All
relationship.
right. And then number
Yes.
5 on the list is, well, reading. What did you read and with what regularity? And then I suppose, so what did you read at the beginning of the learning
Mhm.
journey?
At the beginning, yes, at the beginning, of course, start with easy. Let's start with, there are lots of sources of easy Finnish or Selko. Suomea, Selko, etc. You could use that. And then as you progress, then make it a little bit more difficult, a little bit more nuanced, a different
Mm.
context. And then until you get to the abstract level of
Were you like children's books at the beginning or articles at the beginning, or which at that stage, what was more of?
yeah, it's a combination of news and also books which are written, the books that is offered in the integration
Oh,
program.
right.
For example, it is also in accordance to your
Level.
level. So if it's level 1, then it's easy to understand,
Are
and
they like
if it's
they're
level
like
2, then
novels
it's
or what?
level
No, are they
that
novels or what are they? These books?
no, not really novels. Inside the
Yeah.
grammar books, there could be letters, there could be
Yeah.
conversations. So there are different types.
And then what about with writing? I think that's the 6th one, writing. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, in writing, well, at least for my part, especially at the latter part of my advanced Finnish studies, I write an article in Finnish in my um related to my profession. So as part of the 30 credit program that I was in, I have to be able to make an article based on the new Finnish law on immigration. So I write that in Finnish, and how was I just right? And then as you go, improve it, make it more
Yeah.
complex. And of course, you start with simple sentences if your level is low. And then if as you progress and as you are able to understand grammar, then make the sentences more complex
Right.
and more like the complex books and articles that you read in advance.
Right. Okay. Okay. I noticed this is going a bit long, and I hope it's not too much of an issue. But I think
No, it's
okay, good.
okay. It's my pleasure to
I'm
help.
glad. Yeah, yeah. I think maybe 5,
Mhm.
10 minutes it should be. Yeah. Um. Okay. So tell me of the times when you found it most difficult to continue chasing the goal.
Yes, when I reached last year in my second year of learning the language, when you get to Keskitas, so this is B1 or A2.2 to B1. When you get to that level, I said to my teacher, yeah, I think I said it to someone that I reach a plateau where I feel like I'm not
Yeah.
advancing. And then I was able to talk with a linguist, and she said that, of course, because in order for you to get from intermediate to advanced, some people take a lifetime to be able to reach that level. It's quite understandable because when you get from intermediate to advanced, advanced means that you're able to reason, you're able to express
Right.
yourself well in Finnish, in which in logic, in facts, in statistics, and in your own nuanced knowledge or profession. But so it makes sense when she said that. So that I hit a plateau,
Yeah.
but just like what I told you earlier, I made these radical steps, which I think not many does. So you do what is difficult, you read a lot, you listen to podcasts, and you list terms. It takes a lot of time, although you have a lot of other
Right.
responsibilities, but you still did. So that's how I was able to advance after reaching a plateau in my
Right.
learning
So
Finnish.
in your case, the difficult, what you found it more difficult when you were putting in the effort, but then you were not seeing any improvement. And your solution for that was, in, in essence, to find, like to actively seek what is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, because I've heard something like this before I think there's a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You. I think it's called. Or then in some TED talk where the guy was saying, if you get to Serena Williams' level of tennis, to get better, it's probably to get significantly better, it's probably gonna take just as much time as it took for her to get from zero to that level. And yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that is, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And, but in terms of motivation wise, I think from what we can gather from, you have that kind of mindset of just reminding yourself to kind of keep going. So that was mainly what I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
going for, like in the times when you felt like tired. But okay, yeah, let me just move on to the next one. What word of encouragement can you give to anyone who has like gotten fed up with trying to get to this goal?
Yeah. Well, I know it's difficult. I know it feels discouraging. I know it sucks. But press on because it will be worth it.
And then how has your life become better now that you live in a country where you finally speak the language?
Okay. It got a lot better because you know when I know that you understand where I coming from. When I am not yet that proficient in the language, I feel like I'm an outsider. But when I became proficient to the language, now I feel that I am fully actually integrating. This is personal wise, so that is it got a lot better, and I was able to like appreciate a lot more and understand a lot more because delving with the language of a people group, for example, you're able to understand more of their culture, more of the beauty of and all of that. So that is I think that's quite an experience to be able to integrate is also to be able to understand a lot of the background of things, the history, and where they are
Yeah.
coming from. That's why the language is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. For me, it's just
yeah.
like, I don't know, the quality of life was just because I'm in my 20s and I'm thinking, am I really going to spend my 20s in a country where I can't even make jokes to the cashier because I have to take 2 minutes to think about the
Yeah.
joke and things like that. Or
Mhm.
I can't, I don't know,
Mhm.
go on dates with somebody because they don't speak English and I
Mhm.
don't speak Finnish well enough and things like that. It was just the quality of life was like, nah, I needed to do something about it. And then at work as well, I could see everyone who was higher than me spoke Finnish. And I was like, it was affecting my pockets. So, so
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
true. That's true.
Actually, yeah, that is the last question. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. And I've really enjoyed this. You speak very well, but I mean, that's understandable. Uh, you're, you have a law background, so you can articulate yourself really well. And yeah, that was really good. And, yeah. And
Thank you. I hope I did well. I This is kind of impromptu in the sense that it's the first time I'm talking about this topic in a
right.
podcast. So I hope that I'm able to did do well by some aspects. It's for me now that I'm thinking about it, it could be redundant.
Oh,
So
no, no, no.
feel free
Yeah.
to
I
just
think the whole thing has been designed around the fact that I want all the methods that you used to get to the goal to be out there so that people can pick and choose which methods work best for them. Because like you were saying, for the speaking exercises in class were not very beneficial for you. But for me, I think they were, but yeah, it's just person to person. So it's, yeah. But yeah, I really appreciate you
Mhm.
making the time for this. And yeah, this took quite a lot longer than than I thought. And yeah,
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Okay, and Yeah, let's
Yeah,
keep in touch
for
in
sure.
LinkedIn
And
as
I'm
well.
definitely
Yeah,
following your career because if you've been able to do this, what else can you do? So, yeah. And yeah,
likewise.
yeah. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, all the best to your podcast. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate this kind of endeavor because it's very important for immigrants, and it's amazing. It's very encouraging that there is this type of endeavor and project that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
keep it up.
Thank you very
Mhm.
much. And
Yeah.
if you ever come across anyone who you think would be a good fit for me to interview as well, that would be very much appreciated because we are rare, it seems. Yeah,
Statistically, yeah.
statistically, we seem to be quite rare. Yeah. But all right. Hey, have a
Yeah.
good evening. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Likewise. Bye
bye.
bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of How I Learned Finnish with R. Tune in for the next one, where we will have a completely different, very exciting guest with a totally new background, different life story, circumstances, and obstacles, and most importantly, their own unique and creative way of how to achieve fluency in their target language.